Peace, party people. For the players, K. Murdock, Harvey Newman, brought to you by Proxima Studios. We are back for another episode. And this week is a little bit special. We are recording this. I know usually the idea is always to keep what they call evergreen, which means like you never know when things are being done or whatever. But I can't help but mention that today, as we record this, in the States, that is, because I know it's really only celebrated here in the United States, is Independence Day, 4th of July. And me being always trying to be creative with the concepts and things we can possibly talk about, I was like, man, 4th of July, what can we do to kind of like fuse in what we, talk about on the show? So I was like, how about I think about the top 4 independent games that I played like in the course of, I would like to say my life, but I think the picks that I picked, these 4 games you're going to hear me talk about, and Harvey's going to share some of his too, really came about over the last few, I would say decade and a half, because that's really when I started paying attention to, okay, this is an independently developed game by independent studio versus the AAA Nintendos and Segas. So, I wish I could go all the way back to when I really started playing games back in the early 80s, but I don't know. I can't go back that far. Oh, man. Well, first off, Harvey, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good to be here. Like, it's really cool to see the podcast getting some traction. And right. I do think that we're getting better at this, Kyle. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, consistency is key. I think with anything, right? When people, they get used to seeing the feed, a new episode drop in the feed every week. And, they hopefully get excited and not turned off by rambling. I don't want to say we ramble, because the stuff you talk about is very insightful. Me, I always say like I'm the one kind of receiving, much like hopefully the people listening, because again, this form of media, this interactive space is somewhat new to me as a person who's worked in the linear media space and audio most of my life. So like every week it's like I learn something new, which is awesome,
Yeah. No, I agree. No, it's good, man. It's really cool. As people say, when you actually talk to them, like I think your perspective is very, very much like every gamer's perspective out there,
right.
With like the unknown, the how is it made and all that stuff. Right. And then I think I'm coming from the other side, which I think is good, right? Because we have 2 different perspectives when it comes to games. I'm glad people are enjoying it, man. So like,
awesome.
Good to be here.
Well, the other thing that we will talk about later in the show, we actually we've been talking about this or soliciting at the end of the last couple of shows, like for people who are listening to send us and submit questions. And we got a really good one from Alex on YouTube that we will answer before we wrap this episode too. And please feel free to continue to send us questions, because that means people are engaging and listening, and that makes us happy.
100%. Super happy to have that first question.
Right.
So thanks very much. And let's keep it going. More questions.
Yes. Okay. So, all right. Top 4 independent developed games in honor of dedicated to all my people here in the States who really care about cool concepts, at least to me, that are creative. And I had to start off this list with a game that I played back in 2012 on PlayStation. I think it was PlayStation 3 at the time. And it, I had never played a game like this. It caught me off guard just because of how kind of easy but at the same time engaging it was, like as far as like I wanted to know what happened next in the story. It's not a super long game. It had an amazing score by Austin Wintory, who's gone on to be Grammy nominated for stuff he's done. But the game I'm talking about is called Journey. And it was developed by a company called That Game Company, which is a pretty interesting title. Do you have any thoughts about this game? I mean, especially because you were in that space, like in the game space while this has happened. Do you know anyone from the company? Any insights about the game?
I don't. I know that I believe it was published by Sony Santa Monica, I want to say, right?
Yes.
At that point and stuff. And I don't know anybody that has worked in that game, but I do remember how much of a wave that game made, because at the time was all about action games, and first person shooters will start to come up.
Right.
And this was the absolute opposite of what a first person shooter was, right? It's like super zen. And then they went to create a game like Flower and things like that.
Yes, and Flow. I think they did a game called Flow. Yes.
As well. And yeah, man, it was like a breath of fresh air. And this was like nowadays, like I think indies are very much like prevalent or like coming up with new ideas and cool gameplay mechanics and stuff. At that point, it was very much everybody was cookie cutter, copying each other.
Right.
So it felt like so good to actually see not only visually, music wise, and like, you know, like the game flow and the logic and everything was beautifully put together. So craft of love, I'm sure.
And, you know, you mentioned about that, like, and I wanted to ask you, okay, so reading about in the Wikipedia this game, because, you know, it was like developed independently by independent studio, that game company. But it had all the stuff I read about it was like it had financial support and was ultimately published by Sony.
Yep.
What does that mean? Like, and how does that happen usually, I guess, like, where independent dev can get major publishing by a company without being, is that like lead to ultimately the publisher, like Sony, buying the company? Is that usually what happens? Because we've seen that happen with some other titles where game companies get brought under the bigger umbrella of a company, and then of course there were so many layoffs and studios got cut. But how does that happen? Like,
oh man, it's like it's really interesting because I think once again I'm not too sure exactly about the story of that game company, because a lot of the time you're so busy building the game, you're so busy, so stressed out to kind of like make sure that the game is good and as good as possible, that you don't pay attention to like making like behind the scenes and things like that. This is why I don't know if you're familiar with NoClip.
Yes.
With NoClip. This is why I think like production houses like NoClip, and NoClip being the best one of them all, I'm a big fan.
Right.
I think it's perfect because you are so focused on the game that having a company externally coming to your studio every so often and be like, so how's things?
Right. Checking in and
checking in. It's like, what have you done? Because for us, as you know, Kyle, like going from like GDC to then the trailer before then, and then like Gamescom and stuff, it feels like you're just going through the motions and you don't have time to actually kind of like check on your achievements. It's almost like you never sing your praises. So I'm pretty sure that in this company must have like a really cool story behind the scenes, and I hope there's is somewhere on YouTube. But what happens most of the time with this stuff is that a company has an idea, they start developing it, it starts getting traction. Sony would have probably got a wind of this game ages ago. So, you know, all the stuff that we talked about on the last episode when I was talking about, you know, not on the last episode, a few episodes ago, about going to GDC and pitching games and talking to, so like normally these publishers know more or less of your game, and what they want to do is basically keep track of your progress. And they go like, cool, show us more. Cool, show us more. And then you just keep on doing. So going. So then companies like Sony and Microsoft sometimes fight it out. Sometimes they actually kind of go, yep, like we want this. And then, at some point in time, they probably would have gone like, Sony seems too good to be the right partner. A lot of publishers want to publish this game, but we think that Sony is the best partner. And then they went ahead and actually, you know, a terms sheet and all these other things. And then most likely went, okay, cool. Sounds great. It's a win-win situation. Let's do it. So
because when that game came out, I remember seeing like, it didn't look, I mean, at that time, I don't think I was like being able to discern an indie versus a major, but I was like, when I saw the game, I was like, wow, this looks like a Sony like title, you know what I'm saying? Because it just looked so polished. It sounded so great. It was so unique and different. And it just stood out. And I'm curious, like, because again, it said Sony provided financial support and then ultimately published the game. I guess usually if a company is giving you money to make the game, the idea is that they are going to ultimately publish, right? I mean, like Sony wouldn't just invest in it without publishing it, right?
Yeah, it depends. Once again, it goes back to that, excuse me, for everybody listening, but it goes back to that deal, right? Like, because from our perspective, being a developer, you have to start to gather how much interest is this really getting, right?
Right.
And if you gather that there's lots of interest and this is the next best thing since sliced bread, then you most likely, if Sony comes along and says, we want your game exclusive on our platform and nobody else's and stuff, you kind of go like, hold on. We are in talks with Microsoft and other studios, and they're also interested. So maybe we can have a certain deal here. Maybe you can have it for like a week, and then, all that stuff. So you start to negotiate, but definitely there's going to be money involved. And the more traction, like when you put a teaser trailer out, when you put a trailer out, a gameplay trailer out and things, it starts to kind of like build momentum. And then publishers are really quick to pick up on that momentum and go like, yeah, well, here's all this money so we can actually publish it ourselves.
Gotcha.
Here's all this marketing money so we can actually, because marketing is massive for us as a independent studio. Is massive, because if you don't have any marketing backing, your game is pretty much like
it's just lost in the sea of games. Right.
How many games come out? So even if it's the best game ever, unless word of mouth gets you there, which is normally rare, but it's hard. So if Sony comes along and says like, we'll give you all the money for the marketing as long as you allow us to publish it. Good times. It's great.
Well, it makes me think, and this is a question I wanted to ask, and I'm just trying to, I guess, make the correlation with what I know a little bit better as far as the industry with music. Do you think with the advent, I mean, Steam has been around now for a while, obviously a long time, right?
Yeah.
But do you think with the advent of Steam, which has made it more accessible to reach independent, have independent devs reach more audiences?
Yeah.
I equate it to like, to me, that's ultimately a good thing, because there's just so many people who can make stuff, again, more isolated, and then they can put it on Steam, and then you never know, word of mouth, something gets in the zeitgeist and becomes like big. But at the same time, I kind of like think about it like the advent of like platforms where now you can just create music at home and put it on a place like use a DistroKid or something, or SoundCloud to get your music out, which is great because now it levels the playing field where you don't have to go and seek a distributor. But because you're now getting such a huge inundation of different like levels of quality of music, you have people that are just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like a Chance the Rapper being, versus someone just like a bedroom MC or producer who might not be as polished. Yep. So it makes it like a bigger pool to sift through to find like those gems. So do you think Steam, just thinking about independent games, has kind of done the same thing? Like ultimately, I think it's a good thing, but do you think it's kind of cluttered it up to make it harder to find the gems?
No, I actually think that is the great equalizer, if anything. We should definitely 100% do an episode on Steam versus stuff, because I can go on for days. But I like major kudos to Valve for actually being on the side of players all the time, because they could 100% have gone like, about the money, about selling games, or about making the most profit. When you have a successful platform, this is what people do. I mean, if you look at like, Blizzard had one called, what was it? Frost something or something like that. I forgot the name of the platform, but every single publisher at some point had a platform they want to play. Ubisoft had one, EA had one, and stuff. And I think they went completely left when like Steam was going right. And Steam was kind of like, I think Valve is a little bit like Nintendo. They kind of stick to their guns and they go like, games is the most important thing. Independent games out of all the things are the most important thing. And then as long as we have a ton of games, eventually like the ones that actually deserve to stand out would stand out.
They'll kind of rise to the...
Because they deserve it. Not because like we give them more marketing or we give them more money. It's just because gamers are enjoying it more. Right. And I think this is what Steam does, is like the great equalizer. Like, is it like a good sports, a good... athletes, right? LeBron James, Steph Curry, or whatever. Steph Curry is the best example, right? Like, not so tall, like, skinny kind of
Right,
dude.
right. But can shoot the lights out, right?
Never stand out. Nobody was shooting like Steph back in the day, but now he's here and he shoots the ball better than everybody else. It's like, what does this mean? And now years later, he changed the NBA forever.
Oh my God! No one would have thought about making what they call logo threes or like taking half court shots. Exactly. Like Steph just does that. Yeah.
Exactly. Nobody, and now every kid wants to do it as well, right?
Of course.
Do it. So Steve is kind of like Steph Curry, right? Like he just came along and just kind of like great equalizer. Like if you actually come along with your game and it's like a really badass game, then it doesn't only influence the rest of the community of gamers, but also allows for people to get paid. I think the biggest example as of recent is that Pokemon with Guns game. They came out not long ago. Forgot the name. But the game came out not long ago. Oh man, I forget the name. But yeah, it was basically Pokemon with guns. And people wanted to play this for a long time. Nintendo's been dragging their feet. They've been kind of like rehashing the same game for years and years and years. Here comes this company that actually basically not copies, but like makes these creatures that look very much like Pokemon.
Right.
And then they give you guns that you can shoot things with, and you can still, catch them all and stuff like that.
Right.
And the game just went bananas. And it was like about 20 people, and they got like about 10 million or 5 million or something small like that. And they actually sold the lights out. And now everybody's kind of like looking at that game and going like, what have they done right? What have they done wrong? What can we copy?
Right.
So again, this goes back to that. If it wasn't for Steam, that game would never see the light of day.
Yeah, and it makes me think about I think the first time I really paid attention to like a big independent being sucked up by like one of the majors was, oh my God, when Mojang did Minecraft.
Oh yeah.
And that was what, 2008 or like 9 or something. And I just remember it was interesting at the time. My neighbor, so I lived in Bethesda, Maryland. Bethesda actually is the home of Bethesda Softworks, which makes Fallout and all the different, they have, Arcane Studios is under that umbrella. And at the time, the guy who was in charge of creating, and it was such a treat to have this guy as my neighbor. I used to see him every morning when I walk my dog because he'd be out walking his too. He would be out there, and one day we just talked, and I was like, what do you do for a living? And he was like, oh, I work in video games. Do you play this game called Fallout? And I was like, are you kidding me? And if you've heard the last episode, I play Fallout probably too much, right? So when he told me he was the one who created like the Fat Man and some of the iconic weapons in the game, I was like blown away. And I say all that to say is that in the midst of talking to him, he was like also, kind of giving me some inside stuff or just telling me about game related news. And he was like, hey man, have you ever played this game called Minecraft? And I was like, oh, I've been hearing about it. And he was like, dude, like that game company is about to sell to Microsoft and make a shit ton of money. And they did,
Yeah, exactly.
And look at it now.
And they went solo for the longest time because they didn't want to sell. Like everyone and their mother wanted to buy them.
Right.
And they were like, nope, we're going to keep an indie for a lifetime because they weren't making money. They were like, we don't need a public. We don't need anybody to come over and do the thing. So, which is another like sign that maybe they kind of like got to a point and then things kind of started repeating itself. So they kind of went.
So they need it. You kind of need it. It's like an independent rapper. They can only, for the most part, get so high, and then that's when they start, okay, let me maybe think about going with the major who can help boost and amplify me more. But of course, it comes with the trade-off of,
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really, really cool. Yeah, this industry is fascinating for some reason.
No, I learned, like I said, like it's like inside baseball is what they say when you find out about stuff that like most people, the layman, doesn't know about. So it's very interesting because now it just makes me, when I play a game, I look and listen and just pay attention a lot more. Like, wow, like I have so much more respect for even games that aren't the best. I'm like, somebody had to take time to make this. Like,
yeah, man. Like I was thinking about a conversation last time when you were asking me about how games are made, and like some people nowadays they actually collect a lot of retro games. Have you seen this like thing? There's whole YouTube channels about this. People collecting consoles and games, and it's a lot of like younger people, I should say, not kids, younger people that haven't really experienced the N64 before. They haven't really experienced like PlayStation 1 and stuff.
Right.
And then they want to like buy the console and buy the games and stuff. And I was thinking about how many games they have in their collection, because they have these walls plastered with games, and every single one is like a little miracle
right.
that has happened in order for this game to come.
And
to
has
life.
a story of like what was behind the development, which is, I think, I don't know. I'm at that age now. I like documentaries, so I'm always interested. How did this get made? You know, so
absolutely,
yeah.
Like I highly recommend to anybody listening to actually go and check No Clip, because they just released one about Psygnosis, which was a big publisher that is gone like extinct, unfortunately, like many others.
Right.
And they were talking about the music of Wipeout. For those that have played the game, and Wipeout, classic gameplay with an amazing soundtrack. And it was all done here in the UK, and it was produced mostly by this one dude that didn't even like electronic music. He hated it.
Really? What?
He hated it, and then he had to actually kind of like get his head around it and produce music, and it resulted in Wipeout 2 being like wanted to be featured by so many artists, right?
Right.
And it's fascinating to just see how much the game's culture influences people, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That game was, I remember that game because it was one of the first to ship, I think, with the PlayStation, right?
Yeah. PS1 was one of the.
It was my buddy got the PlayStation. He got Wipeout, the PlayStation, obviously, and Battle Arena Toshinden. Remember that game?
Like the PS1. I know we're going offline.
I know. Yeah.
But the PS1, and you know, and I know, Kyle, because we were there. You had to be there. But
of course,
when it first came out, when you had cartridges, and all of a sudden you had discs, and the discs were black. You never seen like.
No. The back of the disc. Yeah, it was crazy.
Black. And then I remember staring at that disc for so long, going like, how can he read the data? He's black. It's impossible. Like you can see on the regular CDs, there's like a little bit of groove and stuff. Like you can relate it to vinyl, but black discs. Then you put it on and you had the memory card, and no one has seen the memory cards that way.
Nope.
The controller was futuristic. And then you put on a Wipeout, and the Wipeout is futuristic. It was like Mario Kart on steroids.
Yep.
And it's like, the future is here. That's how it felt. It felt like the future was here.
You know, and what was so cool with a lot of PlayStation games, I want to say you could put the game in, take it out, and put another CD in, and keep keep playing with another soundtrack. Which is, I was like, how is this happening? Like,
and do you remember when Gran Turismo came out?
And oh my god, dude!
On PS1, like everybody was like, "It's impossible for graphics to get better than this." This
is It was, and the car physics was so real that I actually stopped playing because I'm used to games like Daytona and Ridge Racer. I was like, this is too realistic. Like, I don't want to.
Which sounds funny when you say it now.
Yeah. Because now you want that experience. Like, back then I was like, give me the arcade games. Like, this is too much. Like,
too much.
But it was amazing. Yeah.
Anyways, I'll stop.
No. It's cool. We totally went down a side quest, as they like to say. But just wrapping up thoughts about Journey. Was there anything else you remember about that game? I mean, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was that it was just very unique, which is one thing I associate with very independent games that do well. They usually just stand out and I guess they have to, because in the melee or the sea of AAA titles, you need to have something that makes you very different. And that game, again, it looked polished. It was easy to play. Like, I feel like my daughters, this is probably a game I need to get them to check out, because I feel like they could go through it without like me having to assist them. And it's a really great story, has really great music. It just felt you could play it over the course of a day or afternoon. So I don't know, any other memories you had of
No, I just remember the visuals, man. The visuals being amazing,
right.
The mechanics being very different from any other game, and then pulling them off like super well, because there's something to be said about a game that has a brand new mechanic that hasn't been seen before,
right? And
then actually feeling good and playing well and like being easy to understand. It's like everything that is invented brand new, right? It's like it kind of feels obvious when you're actually playing it or seeing it for the first time. You're like, more games should do this,
right?
But until somebody does it, it's not obvious whatsoever, right?
Right.
And Journey was one of those games. Like, all of a sudden, so many games came out after Journey that actually have mechanics similar to Journey.
Right. That's what they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So
100%.
yeah. So you're right. After that, everyone was like, maybe we don't need to have I mean, because the game didn't really have much. It was all text, dialogue, and like if that, it was mostly like inferred like actions with the buttons and stuff, which was nice.
Yeah, UI and just follow, like,
Yes.
and just like get into a place and then just unveiling another place. This is a discovery game.
Yeah.
It was really
and it
cool.
built too. It was very the way the game built, like as you could tell you were getting closer to something special because like there was more music, the instrumentation, the graphics and stuff. It was pretty cool, man. It was almost like a game that you would see like as a demo to showcase like things that could happen or be possible, but it was actually a standalone game, which was really cool.
Absolutely. And there's so many, like you can actually see a line direct to have you seen this game that was massively mobile, now it's a console game, called Hyper Light Breaker?
Oh my god, yes
right.
Yes,
if you think about that game, it being like 8-bit looking and stuff like that, and you think about Journey in terms of looks, in terms of like going from place A to B and all that stuff, except for like the orthographic view, is very much like very much infused by this look, by this style that Journey had, and yeah, this is why Journey is so cool.
Cool, man. Well, moving to the second one on my list of my four. And again, I know there's probably ones I missed. Again, this is personal. This is just my four. So I don't want anyone thinking like I'm trying to rank them all the time. This is just K Murdock's picks. The second game I'm going to pick, and I was on the fence because, well, the company, the studio that the indie dev is called Playdead Studios, and they're known for this game called Limbo that came out. I think Limbo came out like 2010 or something. It was amazing. Just another game. There wasn't a lot of tech. It wasn't really any text. It was kind of just like you're playing as this kid. You're trying to figure out the story. You're just kind of dropped in and it's a puzzle solving. Had a really cool noir, black and white and gray look. But the game that I really liked more than Limbo, believe it or not, was the next game that came out that was similar to that, called Inside. Have you ever played that?
100%. I completed it.
Like, that game was it's
amazing. If I was a DJ, I'll probably like go like hit
the air horn,
air horn, because that game was awesome, man. That game was really cool, and it's actually quite fun. Like, you should definitely look up Playdead Studios, like the story and how they actually kind of like came together for you, Kyle, and everybody listening, because it's very inspirational for studios like ours. It's very much this, like, people like us that kind of like have been into the ringer on AAA and wanted to kind of create something.
Just wanted to do something different on their own.
Yeah, exactly. Something fun, something different on your own and stuff. So yeah, it's really, really cool. And like, the thing that struck me the most about Inside is like how polished it was. It's like Limbo was their take on like a good visual game that actually is interesting to play. Inside is very much they're digging into like, we mastered gameplay. And
it was almost like, exactly.
And here's how we deliver a good story. And the only thing that's like to sticks to my mind in Inside is the storyline. There was no audio, and yet you fell for the character. You were very much intrigued about what's coming next, and where's the character going, and where did it came from, and what's ahead of you. It was so cool.
Two things that stood out to me about that game. You mentioned audio. Obviously, as a person now who's, has always been in the audio, but now getting into game audio, I pay attention to that more than anything. And sometimes I pay attention to what people choose not to have a lot of audio. And that game made sense because, one, the kid is trying to be very sneaky the whole time, right? So when you do hear sound, it stands out even more, and you have to really listen because it's very immersive in that aspect, And the other thing that I guess really kind of drew me in, aside from the fact that I was like, what is this about? And as I played through the game, I'm starting to see more and more, reveals of things like, okay, I can kind of make out what the story is. Right. But it reminded me of one of my favorite kind of games I occasionally like to play for like Super Nintendo or SNES, as you all said in the UK. Flashback, Out of This World, those two games, in the sense of just like it was easy to do something and kind of like a lot of trial by error. Like, I shouldn't have jumped right here because the guy will get me, or the dog will eat me, or and and as much as it was frustrating, it was also like, yo, I gotta pass this part. Like,
yeah, and it's actually something like super, like you touched on a point that is super important. Like in Inside specifically, like you don't feel like it's the game's fault when you fail. It's your fault.
No.
Right? Like you actually fall through or you die or whatever. Like, oh man, I should have done better.
Right.
That's a good sign of a game really well designed. Like if you feel frustrated because the game is actually like stopping you from getting to things or animations or walls or anything like that, if you feel it's unfair, that's a whole new ball game, and that's like, you know, horrible design. But in the game like this, it's like it's brilliant because it puts it on you, the player, to kind of like defeat the game. And Elden Ring is the same. It's amazing,
dude. I was gonna say that's interesting. You compared it to Elden Ring because I have another game we'll talk about later that reminds me more of the difficulty of Elden Ring. But I was gonna say, somewhat unlike the Souls games or like Elden Ring, but like I know a lot of people like always, that's part of it. The difficulty is so OP that people are like, I gotta pass this part. And so when you do beat this boss or figure out this part, it's almost like the serotonin gets released and like it's a mini victory or whatever.
100%.
But, so the thing about Inside, I feel like, whereas you can get frustrated playing Elden Ring, at least I do.
Yeah, I do.
I never really get frustrated by Inside or Limbo or those type of games because, like you said, like when I do figure out the puzzle or how to do this, or like I might have like, oh man, I might have mistimed my jump or something like small. It doesn't leave me like, and it's probably because you don't have the screen come up like Elden Ring, like you're dead, you died. But I don't know, like. I Inside in those games, level of difficulty is more of my speed now as a 40-year-old in my 40s with 2 kids. I just don't have the time and investment to put into these games like Elden Ring, like I once did in my 20s or whatever. So I'll stick to more Inside and stuff.
Like I actually like, I think what frustrates me on Elden Ring is that not only do you actually get the you died screen, that it hurts every single time, especially when you're like it's 1,000 deaths.
Right.
How many more times I have to die before I complete?
And it keeps track. That's crazy.
I know. just to add like salt to the wound.
Yeah. Like you died this many times.
But the problem is that you actually kind of like get like sprung out to like a long time ago before when you save.
And so they take some of your stuff too, the inventory, right? Yeah.
And then you have to walk back to where you were to face the boss that you hate, that you've been playing for like 10 hours straight, and you like cannot see the face of this guy. But one thing that comes to mind often to me is like, would Elden Ring be as hard as people perceive it nowadays if it was actually released for some miracle in the 1980s and 1990s when games used to be so hard?
Oh no, that was just Elden Ring's difficulty was just almost standard of like
standard.
I mentioned this is like maybe a month ago or whatever when we did our first show after our hiatus and we talked about this. I was playing Bionic Commando, but I was playing it now with like save states and being able to freeze and unfreeze, and how it took me that way to beat the game. I never beat the game when I had it in the 80s as a kid. I got close, really close, and then I ran out of men. And I remember one time I had one man left, and it was anyone who knows the game. I mean, at this point, I can spoil it because it's been 30, almost 40 years.
If you haven't played it yet, then
yeah. Sorry. But the last thing you have to do to take out the guy who basically looks like Adolf Hitler, which was that was another thing that was kind of weird about the game. You have to time your jump, and at the last minute, the guy Super Joe, he tells you, he says, you have to shoot into the cockpit right at the right moment to blow up the guy, the boss's like chopper or whatever. And I had one life left and I didn't do it and I died and I basically was done. Like, and I was like, I will never play this game again.
Yeah.
Fast forward 40 years later. And I was like, oh, I have save states. So I finally beat Bionic Commando. And I was like, I don't know.
It only took you 30 years.
Yeah. The 10-year-old me was kind of like, yay. But the 45-year-old me was like, what? My wife was like, congratulations. What the fuck was that? Like,
exactly. The 10-year-old will tell you were cheating. This is not how you play the game.
Yeah. But I'm like, man, I deserve it. I went through and suffered Like, you know, yeah, I did the my 10,000 hours, my Malcolm Gladwell, like I put in the time. Like I feel like I deserve to be able to do this because I played the original, I tried my hardest, and now I just wanted to finish the game just to see how it is. And I guess I could have looked up on YouTube how the game ends, but it was something about playing that nostalgia that really resonated. So
and like I think you touched on something important because games back then were made to kill the player 9 times out of 10. Like if you actually succeeded, that's how you felt, right? If you succeeded to make an AI or an enemy that kills the player very often and you make the player's life really difficult, then you have a successful game in your hands.
Yes.
And then that's basically how it is. I mean, Donkey Kong was hard as hell as an enemy, right? Dr. Robotnik, right? It was like the same thing with Sonic. Like, if you see him, you better be fearful because you know you're going to be there for the next few hours trying to beat his ass. So that was the goal back then. But nowadays, like, games have changed to the point where and like, you know, it's not blame because games have changed, but like, I do think that there's a balance that we're trying to strike nowadays of like having games like Uncharted that kind of like keep you moving forward and you have this fulfillment as you progress through the story and the storyline and completing the storyline is more important than you dying in game and all this.
Right.
That's one part of the equation. But then the other part is that players became quite casual to the point that if you paid like, you know, 50 pounds or 60 pounds or whatever it is for a game, which is a lot of money. And then you cannot like leave level 1, even though you paid all this cash, people get really angry. But that was something that used to happen before because maybe it's because of the quantity. Now everybody has more than one game. And back in the day, you had like 3 or 4 games they will play over and over again. You don't care so much. But yeah, there's definitely discrepancy on levels. And I think Elden Ring, the only thing they've done is bring back the difficulty that was lost over the years, but now people are ready for it. Like now streamers are trying to beat the game, and then because streamers trying to beat the game, young people want to do the same thing and stuff. Which I think is beneficial for everybody. It's cool.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it, man. Case study, just even watching the way my daughters play, when they get tired of a game, they hit the home button on their Switch and go to another game. For us, it was different. We had to turn off the game, take it out, put another game, and we just didn't have my library of games wasn't that robust, which is probably why, like, whenever I got the chance to buy a game, I really got into role playing games because I was like, these games are going to take me 30 to 40 hours to beat.
Exactly. That's why
more bang for my buck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Like you like back in the day, you buy a copy of WoW on PC, and that's you sorted. You don't have to actually buy another game because
because they're gonna. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow, I never thought about that.
And I also blame Netflix. And it's gonna make me sound super old, but I can see it through the eyes of my daughters because you know back in the day when we had like cable TV and you were in the morning. Normally, at least for me, I had an option of about 5-6 channels to watch cartoons and whatever. Right. And then you can normally stick to one, which is then the one that actually has the best cartoons, and then you just stay there, and then you go through ads, you go through bad shows to then get to the good show, and then you watch the good show, and then you go through another 3 bad shows, but you stick to it. That's one thing that you watch. You just sit. Right. But now like the going through one show and either rinsing it or then watching a couple of episodes and then home button going to another show. And it's like, I'm kind of tired of this one. Let's go to another one. Right. And it's like the curiosity of like, what else? What else is there? What else can I see? What else can I think that's why people have like a shorter, like, attention span that doesn't allow me to pick or like stick with something for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, it's what is the term I've heard? I've heard someone say like paralysis by analysis in the sense of just like, for last night was a perfect example. I was like, I'm going to watch something on Netflix. Dude, I spent 35 minutes deciding. And by the time I turned on, I wanted to trying to watch a horror movie, Insidious Red Door. I fell asleep because I spent one, I'm older, so I don't stay awake that long late. And then the other thing was, by the time the time I could have been spending watching a movie, I was watching like, as soon as you click on something, it shows you like 90 seconds. And I was like doing that repeatedly till I was like, yo, an hour is almost gone by. I haven't even watched anything.
That's it, man. Yeah, 100%. Like, we're going on the tangent. Sorry, guys, but what I've been doing lately is buying Blu-rays, and I don't know exactly why, but it's just a thing I have right now. So it's so refreshing, and yet it kind of makes you question yourself, because like having to stand up from your sofa, going to the cabinet where the Blu-rays is,
right, and change it.
Taking it the disc, putting the disc in the thing, closing it, waiting for it to load, to then watch the movie. All throughout it, you are with your Netflix mind going like, did I choose the right thing? Maybe I should choose something. And then normally my wife is doing like, we pick this one, let's stick to it. Let's see.
Right.
So the other day we were watching Kung Fu Hustle. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, man, it's a classic. Yeah,
classic, amazing.
Did you see the other movie that got me, Shaolin Soccer?
Yeah. I watched that straight after. It was amazing.
Okay.
So like my mind was actually kind of like wondering all the time that I was doing this, putting the Blu-ray, like all the time, did I choose the right movie? Should we to watch another one? I have Django. I have these other things. Interstellar is a bit more modern. Maybe it's going to be better.
Right.
And then by the time I finished the movie, I'm like, I'm so glad I picked it. It was super cool. But I think it's like this battle, this inner battle that we have nowadays. They have so much choice that you just, you become paralyzed, right? So you don't know what to choose because there's too much to choose.
Not at all, man. It's just different, you know. We probably sound like old men, like, oh my God, get off my lawn. Like,
most likely. I like for all of us, all of you guys like listening, let us know. 100%, call us old if necessary. But I do think that, well, like both Kyle and I was born in 1980. You were born in 1979, right, Kyle?
Yep.
So I think we were a part of the generation that we saw the before and after. Like, what do they call it? Gen Z?
We're Gen Z. Well, I'm right on the edge of like Gen Z and the next one, you know.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. Likewise, yeah. So I think millennials going up to 1990 or something like that.
Yes.
And then, and because we saw like the analog, and then we saw the digital when we were still young, because computers came along when we
lived through it, right? During the change, yeah.
So I think it's a really cool age to kind of like analyze, because you are in keep with what's relevant in tech and stuff, but you also like can remember like CRT TVs and having to know remote controls and having to stand up to change the channel and things like that. Yep. So I do think it's a really cool age to kind of like see the before and after, but it might just be me reminiscing.
No. I'm right there with you, man. So I will get back on task. I'm sorry to take these side quests as we've been saying. And I'll keep it moving. It's funny when we're mentioning about like difficulty. I feel like this third game on my list, I really kind of just got hip to it. It's been out. The first version of it came out in 2017, and it's a game called Darkest Dungeon by Red Hook Studios, an independent studio called Red Hook Studios. And it's funny because it looks very much like a game I probably play more on mobile, but it has like a very cool comic like aesthetic. I'm really excited because I think that by the time this comes out, Part 2 will have released on PS5 and Steam and all those places. But Darkest Dungeon is it's an RPG, turn-based. It has a really cool comic book art aesthetic. It's very difficult. I heard the second one is even more difficult than the first. Right. People have compared the difficulty to a Souls game, which again, I think the difficulty of a Souls game was basically just the standard normal difficulty for games made in the 80s and 90s. It's just that these casual games have kind of softened us a little bit,
100%.
Have you ever heard of the studio or the game?
Not the studio, first time, but the game for sure. I saw the game, I saw the reviews, and it looks really cool. Reminds me a lot of Castlevania.
Yes.
Right? A lot of Castlevania back in the day and stuff. And Castlevania games used to be super complicated. And
my God, dude!
Like at the same level as Mega Man.
Yes. Because it was all about time. It was a platformer, or and if you didn't jump the right way or throw the whip at the right time or holy water.
Holy water as well. Yeah.
Did you, it's funny not to go off course, but did you ever beat Dracula? That was another game. I feel like I've gotten to Dracula, but I didn't beat him.
No. I never beat any like Mega Man or like Castlevania. I never like Contra. Contra was the only one, the platformer that I beat.
Wow, you beat Contra. You had to use the 30 men though, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, okay.
But it's because I really liked the vibe of of the game and stuff, and you could co-op the game and stuff, and it was a nice couch co-op game. It was amazing. But yeah, none of the other ones.
Okay. Well, yeah, so that was my third game, Darkest Dungeon. I'm like I said, by the time this comes out, Darkest Dungeon 2 will be out, and I do plan on getting it. If you've been following the show, you know that I'm like way behind on my gaming, but that is actually a game when it comes out, I will play. So I will be somewhat modern in my gaming again. And then to round out this last four, the four independent games I picked a kind of quirky game that actually, shout out to my youngest daughter, Sybil, who kind of hit me too, because she thought it was funny when she saw the game when we were like, I was picking out a game for her to buy. And I was like, this game looks kind of silly. And then I wound up getting into it. And the game is called The Untitled Goose Game by a studio called House. And what do you know about this game?
I know that it comes from the same school as Goat Simulator.
Yeah.
which actually, if you think about it, to me at least, and this is just me, I might be completely wrong. Do you remember the game called Crazy Taxi that came out on Dreamcast?
Oh my god, yeah.
That game was bananas, right? Like it was like exactly what the name described, and I think that was the first game that actually kind of like had so many physics going on as well.
Yeah.
Things happening, like there was like super crazy. And I do think that there's a lineage there to maybe games like Parappa the Rapper and stuff, but they ended up being completely different. But I think there's a lineage there that you probably can connect those games to place where, what if we do this and this is nuts, right? Like, you know, Goat Simulator, right?
right.
Like the life of a goat. Oh, and same thing with this one. I think it's the same thing, and I think it's really fun. And I haven't played it, so I cannot say about the gameplay. But if you say that it's good to play with the kids, I might pick it up and play with my daughter.
It's funny because you know, it's essentially a stealth game. Is this goose who has to like navigate his way around, get keys, use, you know, and obviously the goose can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
But it just shows you like limiting the scope of gameplay kind of forces you to be more creative. So the gameplay it's funny to me, like to see the goose's interactions with people and trying to sneak around and pulling this up so the farmer will go over here. The same thing that I would do in a game like Hitman, except I'm not killing the guy. Like I'm just, you know what I mean? And also too, I was reading an article about the sound designers, the people who did the game, and they were just like, how cool was it for us to be able to go out and like do field recordings of like animals like a goose. You know what I mean? Like, or just like things that like they're so used to doing like sci-fi synthetic artificial sounds, but like literally having to go out and take found stuff that exists and do so I was like, man, that's actually like really cool, and it shows too, because when you play the game, it's another one where there's not a lot of, there's like almost like textural kind of ambient music every now and then, and it really only comes in when it's like to signal that you've done something, that you're on your way, you're doing this the right way. Right. And I like that. It's very procedural. So cool. I paid attention to that. So yeah, if you want a fun game to play that your child and you, if you have a really wacky sense of humor like I do, I would recommend The Untitled Goose Game by House. It's really
amazing. Cool. I need to pick it up. I need to 100% pick it up.
Oh man. Okay, so now that we've gotten past that, I was really excited to get to this. This is our first fan question. I probably should, you know, I guess in the future I'll think of like another cooler way to intro this, but it's our first. So, you know, here we go. And this is from Alex on YouTube. And it's a pretty loaded question that I'm going to naturally, you start off answering, Harvey. Yep. All right. So here we go. It says, and this was in response to the episode we posted about, which episode was it left on? It was
this question was left on, I think it was not the last episode, it was the one before
the one before. Okay.
Yeah.
So Alex says, you guys talk about co-deving between studios. Mm-hmm. Well, while that makes sense for big studios, what about small ones? How do the core team members feel their work day and work week when the bulk of their work is done? Even in small indie teams with 5 to 10 people, we often see devs like concept artists, VFX artists, sound designers, or animators without tasks to do, depending on the project stage. For instance, concept artists are busy at the start, but have little to do towards the end, while lighting artists have the opposite problem. Or we see one department essentially frozen on decisions until another finishes a benchmark. So in indie teams, multitasking is common, I guess. An animator might be a rigger, modeler, or handle engine implementations. So is multitasking or co-deving, just to go all the way back, is multitasking or co-deving the only solution, or are there alternatives? That's a pretty loaded question with a lot of context that I like, because it's 100%. Very interesting. So
it's a great question. So thanks a lot. It's a really, really great question. So I think it's a 2-part question. The co-deving on the indie devs, is 100% possible. And I do think that it's going to happen more and more. The games industry is in a weird place where before, as I mentioned before in previous podcasts, you could actually just have a good idea, a good game, go to a publisher, do a good pitch. And then if lucky, you get the money and you get to develop the game, and you're just the one studio with your own talent.
Right.
But I think as things are changing and people are struggling, or publishers are maybe struggling to not only find the money, but to also kind of like, find what games to publish and things as the industry changes. I think that co-deving is going to be a resource that is going to be very useful for 2 studios to come together, or more than 2 studios to come together to then work on one or both visions at the same time. So almost like, we are good mates. We respect you. You respect us. Let's come together. You can lend us your talents on coding, and then we can lend you our talents on art direction, for example. Right. And then we can basically, help each other out, and then we both win. Because I still think in the industry, in the games industry, there's this idea that my stuff is my stuff, and I want to keep it like secret and until it comes out, so it makes a big boom, and then people know about my game, and it's going to be the best game ever.
Right.
I think now with streaming and social media and YouTubing and stuff, I think we're going the opposite way of like just show stuff, right, as much as possible, so you can keep people in the loop. So co-deving is part of that, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised that more and more indie studios come along and be like, no, this is Proxima and this other studio coming together to create this thing. I think it's for the better, and plus, the more you help each other as a co-dev studio, the more you can be independent from either investors or publishers, because you are hopefully using the money that you got from profits that you got from your own game, which is a win-win, I think.
And for the other part of that, because it was essentially, I know that was kind of like the main point Alex was asking about, but what do you think about like this other part? Really, I guess I hadn't thought about it as far as like, how do core team members fill up their work day and work week when, in different aspects, depending on the game state, like certain team members are just essentially on standby while others are being active. But I mean, that's kind of goes with everything. Like even I can speak more from like films and podcasting and like other forms of media. There's never a sense of, there's always something to be done, but depending on your role, you might not be as active in this point. Like I know, for instance, I'm in the process now of doing a full-length documentary that is about to come to me in post-production, because it's at that time where they need the audio mix, they need the sound design. Mind you, this film was shot for over 4 years. So for 4 years, I knew I was going to be working on this, but I didn't really have much to do. I did help out with the recording, like the interviews that we did for the documentary. But the real work for me as a sound designer and doing post audio work is really about to begin in September when I get this film given to me. And I literally have 2 months to turn this 90-minute documentary around. So that being said, how is it work on the games scene?
Like, I think that what you answered right now, Kyle, is brilliant, because that's exactly how it is. And it is not all the time, but I think here you have 2 camps. You have like indie studios, like, before getting money, before getting, the actual chunk of money to actually make the game, let's say from a publisher. And then you have the ones that actually have the money. And I think the distribution and tax are very different, because before you have money from a publisher, you either like bootstrapping like we are, like investing our own money and our own like sweat
equity, right?
Sweat equity into it in order to make this happen, so people see our vision together, and then hopefully getting that publishing deal or investment deal. So it's very difficult for you to actually kind of like make sure that everybody has all the time tasks, because not only people are busy, but also like certain parts of the game, because you're just like trying to figure out the game, you're trying to figure out exactly what the game mechanics is going to be and the level design and all that stuff. So as you're trying to figure these things out, you are in pre-production, as we talked about it an episode or two ago. And because you are in pre-production, you need a smaller team and you need to focus on specific things. So like now you have a game mechanic. Cool. Okay, so how is the level design of this game mechanic, or where we're going to apply these things? So now we actually shift from animations and design to maybe level design and art, right? So how can we actually traverse these things? But you have to do it independently, because you don't have not only money, but also people don't have a lot of time to spend as if they were working on this full time. And then on the part of being like fully funded and ready to go, now it becomes a thing about just distributing tasks and having an amazing producer, or having a good schedule that you can actually make sure that things fall first, second, and third. Right. And here it's kind of complex, because certain studios become overzealous and they just kind of go, we have this amount of millions and now we can hire absolutely everybody. And they go ahead and hiring like, audio artists, and they kind of put together a whole audio team, but the game hasn't even started. And as Kyle was mentioning, they are at the end of the pipe. So they are basically just seeing what everybody else is doing while they're being hired and being paid, which is probably not the best thing that you can do when you are a brand new studio, right?
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like, the thing is, that usually how it goes. Like, if a person, okay, so like if a major company is working on an IP and they have the budget to hire everyone, does it make sense to hire in more in waves, like when we're getting ready to transition to the next phase where we would need that person, as opposed to bringing them on now and they might not even be working for like a year or so because we're still fleshing out the story? Or is that because people are like, hey, we don't want to potentially lose this person to another company, so we need to hire them away and have them on standby right now?
That's it. It's a bit of both. Really. Because it depends also on publishers, whoever gave you the money, like how much time do you have to develop? Like, there's lots of spinning plates and decisions to be made. So I don't blame anybody that actually wants to do it that way. But normally when you get, or at least how it used to be 5 years ago, when you get like, here, your game is fully funded for the however million.
here's the money. Good luck.
Exactly. So then you go hard on hiring people, because like if you've been through the mill a few times and where you need to end up, like, and the quality of the game, you know that you need a battalion of people to actually make this thing happen, right? So you cannot get there if you don't start hiring now. So a lot of people panic and they start kind of like going into like full hiring mode here, so they have like enough time to kind of hire everybody by the time they get to the deadline. I'm more of a, because we in Proxima are a much smaller studio, 20 to 30 people, and we want to keep it that way. I think that, like, cherry pick whoever you hire, making sure that you don't push things, making sure that whenever the right person comes along. Until then, you have to, make ends meet and maybe focus on other things. I think it's the best way. So I think that doing that, not only protects the money a little bit more, but also make sure that like investors or anybody that is actually looking at the company, and you have to kind of like tell them about what have you done lately and what are you doing with their money. I think is a better way to invest money, because they know that you're being cautious. They know that you're being frugal. And if you have one or two games that are super successful and you become the next big thing, then 100%, a lot of companies will throw money at you and be like, just have 100 million, it's okay. But having all the money in the world is not the solution to make a good game. I think the industry has proven that over and over again. Right? You 100 million in a game and it still can flop. Like,
right. Oh yeah, same with movies too. Yeah,
movies, exactly. Yeah. How many times, right? So, like, I do think that thinking carefully about how you invest your money, making sure that you get the right talent at the right time, and you have a plan to actually kind of like make sure that things fall into place is cool. And then you can create contingency plans if you don't get that superstar audio director that you want.
Who me? Yeah. Hey. No, it's been awesome. Just again, learning and having these conversations because again, you know, I can't help but say this, like, again, as a person who's done audio full-time professionally for so many years, I still feel like a kid in a candy store, especially now coming into games because I grew up a gamer and now having the ability to potentially work on a video game is a bit like a dream come true. So I'm just taking it all in and I'm very appreciative, and I realize I'm coming in green in various aspects, but also bringing in my experience from other parallel forms of media and seeing, and there's a lot of crossover, but obviously linear to interactive are two different spaces, but it's fun. It's been a great adventure thus far. So it'll be even that much sweeter when the day we get the, the funding and stuff. But in the meantime, just even what we've done at this point has been, to me, pretty amazing. Like,
exactly. So. Yeah. You know what I want, Kyle? I want us to kind of like release the game, do a limited run of printed copies, have that like boxed in cover box stuff of,
just like physically having,
and then we're going to be, we're going to be sweet. It's going to be great. Like, good or bad, the game. And, that's very, very much up to the players to decide.
Right.
We'll actually hopefully have something that we've published.
No doubt, man. Well, Harvey, it has been awesome as usual. I will, as you say, in all our meetings, I'll let you be.
I'll let you guys be.
No. We, the usual. We do this show. We love making games as much as we love playing them, and we do this show for you all, for the players. On behalf of Harvey, I'm K Murdock, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
See you next time. Peace.